let's talk about letters of recommendation. So Dr. Matthews actually covered this just a little bit, but you have to build relationships, okay, in order to get strong letters of recommendation, okay? So when you ask someone for a letter of recommendation, for example, if you ask your biology professor for a letter of recommendation, you cannot have been the student who sat all the way in the back all semester, never raised his or her hand, but you got a good grade and now you're asking for a letter of recommendation. It's like, well, the only thing that this person knows about you is that you got an A in their class. So because you did not build a relationship. So make sure that you are building relationships, and you can do that in many different ways, but at the very least, maybe sit in the front of the class, ask a question or two each class, go to office hours and speak with the professor, communicate via email with that professor or your TA or whomever. That way you're building a relationship with this person and they get to know you. So who should you ask for letters of recommendation, okay? Well, there are a lot of different people that you can ask for letters of recommendation. You can see there's a list there, but certainly, you know, anyone who is, you know, your professor, as I mentioned earlier, your employer, a supervisor, you know, a researcher, anyone who you shadowed or anyone who mentored you, anyone with whom you had a clinical experience, okay? So it may not be necessarily the physician, it might be the nurse, okay? It might be the nurse with whom you had a great experience. And then you can also ask your pre-med advisor, or people who are on your pre-med committee, if you will. So, you know, think about all of the, you know, all of the people with whom you can build relationships and ask them for letters, strong letters of recommendation. It's very important that you ask them for very strong letters of recommendation, and if they feel comfortable writing you a strong letter of recommendation. Next slide, please. All right, so speaking of strong, now we're going to the weak, okay? So common pitfalls of a weak application. So people, you know, oftentimes pre-meds want to know what is going to make my application strong, okay? But here we're going to talk about what is going to make your application weak, because we want you to avoid these things. So we want to specifically point out these are the things that you do not want to do, okay? So poor timing, late applications, okay? It's, I mean, for the most part, I would say it is to your advantage to apply early to medical school, okay? For the most part. As Dr. Anani kind of pointed out, he pointed out, you know, the timelines and things like that. So depending on which field of medicine you're going into, your timeline may look a little bit different. But for example, if the timeline is such that your applications, your primary applications are from July to December, it would behoove you not to apply for, you know, for November 15th, for example. That's pretty late in the application cycle, okay? So you'd like to apply earlier. Personal statement errors. Again, Dr. Anani covered this, right? The comma, the grammar, you know, spelling your own name right. That would be a good thing, okay? You want to spell your own name right. So make sure that your personal statement has accurate information, that it is grammatically correct, okay? And that it looks, you know, it looks readable. It looks like it was written by someone who has a college education, okay? Impersonal letters of recommendation. Kind of what I talked about building those relationships. Again, if you were the person that sat in the back in the biology class, you got an A, but this professor has never met you before. If they decide to write you a letter of recommendation, it will be very impersonal. It will literally say, you know, Renee was a student in my biology class, she got an A. That's pretty much it. And that is not really what you want. You want something that is warm, that is very strong, that says that, you know, they give you their strongest recommendation and can say something about you that the reader says, wow, I need to meet this person. Let's invite them for an interview, okay? And then lack of preparation for interviews, all right? Lack of preparation for interviews is a big one. Sometimes students don't realize that the medical school interview can be very rigorous or very nerve-wracking or stressful, okay? So preparing with mock interviews, and we will have a mock interview, or excuse me, an interview session during these webinars, but doing mock interviews can really make a world of difference for you, and really prepare you for questions that you may not necessarily have realized that a medical school or other, school interviewer will ask you. So please, if you are going to apply to medical school, pharmacy school, dental school, podiatric school, please do your mock interview so you can be very well prepared and you can look very well polished. Next slide, please.